Okay, take that off there. Looks like we are ready to go. 6 o'clock, top of the hour. Welcome, everybody. Zoom session number three. Got a couple of important announcements to start things off with, actually. Um, so let's get this thing rolling and get this out of the way here. Okay, it is being recorded, and there is a email if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Um, Welcome, everybody. And I want to just update a couple of meeting situations. Remember, next week we don't have a session, and the reason is because we have a big graduation for some of the new officials that are graduating from the big course that they took over the summer. So we will be back with a 4A kudos in 2 weeks. The second announcement, this is a big change. You should have received an email past week, but just in case you didn't see it, um, make sure that you understand that I think this has been changed twice now. So the tip-off meeting is still on October 20th, but it's now going to be at Greenway High School. And the doors will open at 5:15. New officials are reminded that there's a session for you folks in the auxiliary gym that starts at 4 o'clock and will go for about an hour and a half for on the court training. And you're asked to wear athletic shoes and bring a Fox 40. It's not on the screen there, but bring a Fox 40 whistle with a lanyard. So that's on October 20th. That's coming right up. Um, and for you folks in Tucson, we're still continuing on Tuesdays. Just a reminder that it does begin at 6. I made the correction up here. I apologize to the gentleman that missed that last week, but it's at 6 o'clock every Tuesday. And uh, John has one more. John, you want to speak on the Crew of Three session coming up?
Uh, just that that session is on Monday, the 27th, and I'll be there at 5 o'clock, and we're going to start at 6 right on the dot, and we should be done by 7:30, just like we did last week for the two-person. The two-person went really good, and everybody's welcome, whether they're ready for three-person or not.
Beautiful. Okay, that brings us into the videotape. As a reminder, of course, we do this for educational purposes and not to embarrass any coach, official, player, or institution. And I do apologize to these gentlemen. For some reason, I don't know what happened to your actual on your court state game, but I happened to find these on Facebook. So this is the 2A girls 3A state championship crew, Carlos, Jose, and Randy. And they got some good stuff for us, by the way. Some really good kudos coming up in here in this next session. Starting right off with, speaking of crew of three, normally in a crew of three, the the rotation is begun by the lead official. But once in a while, it actually takes place from the center, and we got a good example of that coming up right here. So let's take a look. So the teaching points are pretty basic. So as we can see, Trail is bringing up the play up from the into the front court. He's got a nice count going. And as it enters into the front court, this is a key. If you look at Randy over here, our center official, sometimes we see the center official doesn't pick up the ball quick enough when it comes into the front court. He does a good job. He notices it right here. Carlos is about ready to release it, and he's aware that it's now in his primary coverage area. And this is the key. Remember, we've harped on this, try to get the open view and watch Randy make the adjustment. And we can't see our lead official, but what has happened is Carlos has gone down to the center position. Jose has gone across the lane and is now over on the ball side. And we have a nice rotation that was started by Randy's move here. And you're probably going to get sick of this diagram, but I just think it's so important to understand, especially for new officials. Forget about crew of three. This concept of being able to get the open view that we see here, you want to see both the offense and the defensive player and the ball. We don't want to be straight line. And that's what we're talking about here. Randy has done a good job of adjusting his position, move to improve, get the open view, and as we can see, he can see both players as he should. Nice job. Okay, kudo number two. Remember, CC stands for correct call. Correct call in regards to a pass crash situation. Okay, the teaching point is actually going to come from the opposite angle because we get a better look at the defensive player and we can zoom in. And as we've done in the last 2 weeks, again, I try to find at least one play dealing with a block charge situation so that we can kind of train our mind in regard to what we need to look for, that checklist. So we're looking for 2 feet facing in the path. We've got an offensive player that's trying to come in her path to the basket. Our defender, white number 12, has 2 feet on the playing court. That's going to be key. She's facing her opponent, and she got there before the offensive player left the court. So as a result, white number 12 has obtained legal guarding position. So now the onus on any potential illegal contact rests with the offensive player. And as we just saw, that player is not able to stop, and we're going to have contact on the torso, torso to torso. I do want to address, because this comes up sometimes, a misunderstanding in regard to legal guarding position, and that is the width of the feet. This is a great example that please understand that when we're talking about legal guarding position, there is no reference in regard to the width of the feet. Well, width of the feet only deals with the setting of a screen. So if this was a screen, that obviously would be too wide. But as far as obtaining legal guarding position, the width of the feet is perfectly legal. So just wanted to clarify that.
Jeff, if I can jump in here, also I want to mention, look at Jose's position. It's perfect. And more than being perfect, the fact that he's there already. Too often we see our guys and gals will be on the other lane line for this play, and that puts us in bad position. Or we're in the process of coming over and we're between the lane lines and we didn't get a good look at it. Here he's in perfect position, stationary, 6 feet off the end line. This is a great photo for a lot of reasons.
I'm glad you picked up on that because it was interesting. When I first watched it just now, I didn't notice it earlier, but I'm going to go back and kind of re-emphasize what John just talked about. I didn't notice it. If you notice right here, right now, he's starting a rotation, and as John just mentioned, he gets there in good time. He's not late, and as a result of his timing, and watch how he turns. He turns, so he's got that open view. We don't have the greatest angle here, but on that other angle, we could see that he had the view and he was in perfect position, as John mentioned. I didn't see that at first, but that was a really good rotation. So I'll just let it go. Okay, kudo number three. Remember, we really like to see NCC, no calls correct, and sometimes we don't get enough credit for these because there's no whistle involved. And only people that understand officiating can appreciate this ruling without a whistle. And this is the dealing with what we hear so many times. Come on, ref, you got to call that. They're over the back. They're over the back. Remember, over the back means that there's space between the two opponents. On the back is something else. So this is a no call correct ruling without a whistle. Well done here. Now, the teaching points are going to give us a chance to take a look at all three officials. And again, it goes back to angles, 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 and obtaining good views versus bad views. This is no fault of the center official over here. This is going to be happening. The likelihood of him being able to make a ruling on rebounding contact in this location is slim to none. And that's why this is a kudo in a sense, because he does not anticipate that this player is on the back. He can't tell because he's straight line. So that's what we mean by no call correct. Now, as we go back to live action, the same thing applies to our lead official because he also is straight line. He can't see if there's any space here. So if there is going to be a foul, it's going to have to come from our trail official. And the good news here is our trail official is in a pretty good position, as we will see coming up when we get back to live action. He's got that open view. And what I've done, and I know John hops on this, and John, maybe I'll let you talk about what you see a lot in regards to official out here in this area.
Well, the fact right here that we've got two centers is quite all right. Two centers for a few seconds is cut, but too often we got our trail official back out there where you've got the red circle, and that official's making a call from back there. This is definitely Carlos's play, and as you said, we got an NCC here.
Right. And if we'd had somebody out here, we might have had a whistle on that. And you can see they would have been straight line and their vision is blocked. And so Randy's done a nice job in getting in the correct position to see that. Number four is another no call correct, start of the dribble. This, by the way, is a point of emphasis this year from the National Federation. You're going to see this in the tip-off meeting. And it's actually, if you go on YouTube, there's a couple of YouTube videos that deal with this same thing. And our crew here has done a good job of not ruling this an illegal dribble. It's kind of hard to see because it's close to the edge of the screen, but so we just want to review the dribble rule. Remember, dribbling is a deliberate act, and there are three parts to the dribble rule. First of all, there's got to be player control. The reason why I say that is because if a player just reaches out and bats the ball to the floor, that's not player control. And that sometimes is misunderstood. The second component is it has to be an intentional throwing, batting, or pushing the ball to the floor after a player has control of the ball. And the third part is then they are going to be the first to touch the ball as it comes up from the floor. So all three of those constitute the dribble rule. In this play, hopefully you've already analyzed this. The initial batting of the ball to the floor was prior to the player gaining control. So when we get back to live action, try to take and focus in on that and try to understand the idea of the control of the basketball. I'm going to let this go through. I put the graphics up, but I think it's better to just let it roll. And I've got it. It's going to go through 3 times. 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 So bats the ball to the floor. That's not a dribble. Controls. Now that's the start of the dribble. Good job by the crew in not ruling that as an illegal dribble. All right, kudo number 5. The correct call on the last second shot where we're going to actually have a travel. And it's right at the buzzer. It's really interesting. Hopefully, a lot of you picked that up as you were watching. We'll break it down. One thing away from the travel, though, I should mention, notice Randy over here. He's the official opposite the table, and we only have 7/10 of a second left. He does a good job of tapping himself on the chest, letting his crewmates know that he understands that he's responsible for this last second shot.
Let me add to that, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead.
If Randy isn't tapping his chest, then hopefully we got Carlos using his right hand or left hand pointing to him, indicating that Randy, you got the call. So if one of them isn't, the other should be commenting on it.
Good point. All right. So let's take a look at the traveling rule. We're going to see white number 1 is going to land on her right foot right here. That's going to become her pivot foot when that other foot comes down. So we've established what the pivot foot is. Now what's going to happen, as you can see, she takes that little hop, she lifts that right pivot foot and puts it back down on the floor before releasing the ball. As a result, she has traveled. John, I know this is one thing that you harp on a lot because you've shared this with me more than once. Do you want to address this?
I'm not sure exactly what you're. My point here would be that travel occurred outside the 3-point arc, okay, and we're going in the other direction now, which means that we're going to use the 28-foot mark on right in back of Carlos right here for our new throw in. If that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, and actually, I personally think, because I know John, you have shared this with me, that it's a little bit too nonchalant. Go take a look at the because this is so close to the you can see the LED light go off. And I have to admit, at first, when I took this out, I took this because I thought Carlos was making a no shot ruling. And I was saying, oh, come on, Randy has just indicated that he's responsible for the last second shot. Carlos, what are you doing? And then when I went back and replayed it, then I saw the travel. So the point here is that probably we should be a little bit more demonstrative in our signal and stop, even though, the horn has gone off, we still would stop that clock and give a big no shot and a big, we do have a travel signal, it's back too, but a nice good wave off, no shot, no shot, because it's so close to the ball going in and what have you. So I just thought I would say something about that.
Jeff, were you referring to now? Should the period end on that play? Is that what you were getting to before?
No, not really. I think it's pretty obvious. But now that you bring that up, yeah, we talked about that 2 weeks ago. That remember this 7/10, that is so quick that hopefully you're not going to put time back on the clock because it's just too quick.
Correct. So in this case, if we had more time and we were going to give the ball for a throw in and go in the other direction, we would inbound it on the sideline. In this case, we're both in agreement that the period should end on this play.
That's a real good point. So let's just hypothetically, let's say it was 2.7 or 1.7. Then
Right.
there would be time to have left on the clock. And in that case, uh, hopefully we've got an official that's aware of that. Right. Good point. All right. This is a learning situation. Contact on an airborne shooter. Okay, there are a couple teaching points on this one. First of all, when we have a shooting situation like this, we need to have some eye discipline and stay with the shooter. I know a lot of us that you've heard this, stay with the shooter. A good recommendation that I heard a long, long time ago from one of my mentors is to go, take the player up, bring them down. And this next one I put in caps, ground, because I think this is where we sometimes tend to leave the players too quickly and our attention goes to the rebound or we follow the ball. So the idea here is up, down, ground, meaning make sure we bring that shooter all the way down and that they've safely landed and then go to the rebound. Now, especially in a crew of three, we can depend on that rebounding action, obviously, from the other outside official. This becomes way more difficult in a crew of two because obviously the outside official has got to be responsible for the rebound. So this is really quick, but we've got to make sure that we get that shooter back to the floor safely. So let's take a look and we'll focus in on that. So first thing is, our mind is everything okay in the up stage? We can see here, there's space here. There's no point of contact on the forearm or the elbow, so everything is okay. So let's bring them down. Everything is still okay. No contact on the arm, no contact on the body. And this is where ground comes in. Don't go to the rebound yet. And here's the reason. Because as we can see here, what has happened is white number 10 has taken the landing space away from that shooter, and as a result, has caused her to lose her balance. And as a result, we don't even get to the rebound stage in this case. Second recommendation on this is be alert for defenders that are jumping from point A to point B. That's pretty clear in this clip as well. So white number 10 blocks the landing of this is airborne shooter, and as a result, we have a foul in the act of shooting. And in this case, it would be three shots, three free throws. Now the A to B is coming up right here. I jumped ahead of myself. So again, if we're refereeing the defense, we can see this defender is going to leave the court from A and jumps forward. In other words, it's not vertical. A to A would be okay, but she goes A to B, and when she comes down in that B spot, that's when she takes away the landing spot, and as a result, I think we had a foul on that situation.
Jeff, there's a question in the chat box, if I can interrupt you,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry, Jimmy. No, I should have. I got sidetracked in the beginning. I'm glad you're getting say. Okay, what do you got?
Okay, going back to that play prior to this, where there was the traveling violation right before the expiration of time in the quarter, the question was, even though the travel call was made, should the center official be blowing their whistle and indicating the end of the quarter? You know,
Uh,
the time expired. We have a whistle for a travel violation, but should there be some indication from the center official across the court that time has expired?
Yeah, I guess that goes along with what John was talking about in regard to whether or not we put time on the clock. So I think that would be perfectly like since they're responsible for the end of the quarter, that would be perfectly okay. Would you agree with that, John?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And John, would you suggest that the whistle be blown by that official to indicate the end of the quarter?
Probably not, because the other official blew their whistle, and so that even though the center official is ultimately going to add their ruling to it, there's going to be a little bit of a time lag here because we've got a whistle. If something happened where the player caught the ball and was moving and didn't get the shot off in time, then I want the center to blow the whistle and be killing it. But in this case, we've got time because the trail official killed the clock, killed the play. So
Good.
hope that's correct. That's clear.
Thank you.
Jimmy, did you say there was a second question? I see there's two.
No, that was just my response to Chuck.
Oh,
So you're free to go on.
okay. All right. Kudo number 6. We have a good example of a 10-second violation. And what I really liked about this was that it occurred on a rebounding situation, and our new trail official immediately started to count so there was no lag in between, and it was well done. Take a look. So you can see it's 3:27 on the clock, on the game clock. Trail's got a good count going. And you can see he wasn't too fast. He made sure he got to 10. In fact, we can see it's at 3:15. So, it was clearly a 10-second violation. Well done. A learning situation. This one deals with, again, a new rule this year, 25-26, the throw-in spot. It just happens that this foul occurred, and I thought it was a good example to demonstrate the new rule. So what we have here is we have a foul in the backcourt. You can see where the foul occurred, and our center official does a good job. By last year's standards, right here, he indicates, now remember, this was last year. So the correct throw-in spot was right there at the P. Randy does a good job of indicating the throw-in spot so that everybody knows where the ball's coming back into play last year. Now, the new rule this year, as John has already alluded to this year now, remember, all the throw-ins go at one of the 8 designated throw-in spots. So now that foul throw-in, the throw-in for the foul is going to go back, and some people may be confused on this, but it's going to go back to the 28-foot mark in the backcourt. Okay, so the designated throw-in spots now come into play on everything except a ball that goes out of bounds over a boundary, and that's no change. That still comes in where the ball went out of bounds. And the only other exception is if we should have a technical foul, that would be at the division line opposite the scorer's table. But in this case, if this foul occurred this coming season, we would have to remember to put the ball back in on the 28-foot line. Anybody have any questions on that? I just thought it was a very clear example. All right, number 9. A good example here of the center stepping towards the end line on the last free throw. Sometimes what we see is that the center bails out too soon and we don't have good rebounding coverage. So I wanted to make sure to emphasize that fact. All right. That completes the 3A girls. Now we're going to move to the 3A boys. With our crew of Andy, Tim, and Joshua. We go right to kudo number 1, point of contact foul. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we've already talked about the up, down, ground rebound technique, but it comes into play here. And our officials do a good job of picking up the foul as a result. Okay, from the other side of the court. So this is up, and we don't have to go any further. As we can see, our official went and stayed, had monitored the up motion, and we could see the contact on the elbow, and as a result, makes the correct ruling. Point of contact is on the elbow. Good job. Number 2, no call correct on a blocked shot. Now, this came up at the conference. I came back from a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that they emphasized was that when we have a situation where a player is going out for a block, that sometimes what we do is, and I know I'm guilty of this, is that we kind of think, oh no, here comes a foul, here comes a foul, here comes a foul. And we get that in our head. And I don't know about you, but I know in my career, I more than once have gone up and I have put the air in the whistle too soon. And I said, oh my goodness, that was a clean block, but I've already blown the whistle, so I've got to live with it. The suggestion that was made at this conference was when we have a blocking situation, a block shot situation, not a block charge, but a block shot situation, try to have a positive mental image of it's going to be blocked. It's going to be a good block. It's going to be a good block. It's going to be a good block. And then the thinking here is if it's a good block, no problem. We just let the play go through. If it is blocked, fine. We have maybe what sometimes is called a late whistle, but we still made the call correct. So the point is, have a little bit more patience when we have this and have a positive image that it's going to be legitimately blocked. And I think what happens here is a good job by our officials here in doing that. Whether they purposely did it, but it was a good job. It clearly was a clear block. Number 3, correct call. Now this is dealing with a blocking foul. Dealing with whether or not the player obtained legal guiding position or not. So again, as we said, we try to put the checklist up in regard to when we have to make a ruling, referee the defense, and get our checklist out. Does the white defensive player obtain legal guarding position? Do they have 2 feet touching the playing court? One thing that I didn't have on here that I probably should put on here, remember, in obtaining legal guarding position, it has to be in the path of the offensive player. And what we can see here, I think, it's not the greatest camera angle, but the path is not being blocked by the defender. And as a result, it looks like they may have head and shoulders past. So are they facing the opponent? And did they get there first? And I think in this case, we have not checked off the boxes. And as a result, I think we have a good, correct call ruling in regard to a blocking situation. All right, number 4. Another correct call dealing with a travel. See if you can find the pivot foot during the live action before we get to the teaching points. So white 24 ends the dribble, as we can see here, with their right foot on the floor, which becomes their pivot foot when that left foot touches down. So we got a right foot pivot foot. See what happens. It clearly gets dragged, there's a spin, and there's a shuffle. Again, we don't want to nitpick in regard to a slight drag, but this was a drag, spin, shuffle, and our lead official does a good job of seeing all that and makes the correct ruling. Now, again, as I said, try to emphasize, especially this is for the new folks, really think about obtaining the open view, and you've got to adjust your position. You've got to have a sense of urgency so you don't accept the straight line position. And I think even though our trail official doesn't make this ruling, he does provide us with a good example of adjusting his position for the open view. So let's focus on him for a second, right here. A suggestion, and this is not 100%, but percentages say that if a player drives to the right, then we should move to the left. Sometimes our habit is that it's like a magnet. If the player drives to the basket, we tend to go with them. And if you stop and think about it, if he had done that here, he would have ended up somewhere down here and he would have been in a straight line position. But he goes opposite. So the player went right, he went left. And when he goes left, there's that open view that we talk about right there. Nice job.
Can I jump in here, Jeff, for a sec?
Yeah.
Notice where our center and our trail officials are exactly where we want them to be. We got our center official, free throw line extended. We got our trail official, top of the arc, which is, we're not always going to be there, but this almost every single film clip, we've been in perfect position.
And so this is, I guess I jumped ahead of myself. If he had stayed where he was originally, he would have been screened out by this player. If there had been, and the reason why I say that, if there had been any foul occurred here, then he would not have had the best angle to see it. Number 5, there's actually 2 no call correct dealing with verticality situation. 2 good examples of what we mean by verticality. And the way we check verticality obviously is to put a line in between the players and watch the defender's feet. Do they come forward or do they simply go straight up in the air? Sometimes referred to as A to A, as opposed to that A to B. In this case, we're going to see that this dark jersey player is just going to jump straight up. His arms are going to stay in his vertical plane. If there's any contact, the contact is caused by the white jersey player. Good example of incidental contact and good example of a no call correct, no whistle. Same thing here. On the rebound, what's going to happen again? Watch the defender's feet, watch the vertical plane. And again, what happens here, a good rule of thumb would be the lead would be responsible for contact from the waist up and a trail from the waist down, dealing with any traveling situations that might occur. And he actually somehow blocked that flat-footed. All right, number 6, correct call dealing with an illegal screen. Now, what's interesting about this, and I'm glad this occurred because I don't know about you, but I see more and more teams using these fake screen types of things to describe a screen. What I mean by that is they set the screen legally and then they peel off and they pick off the defender and as they roll to the basket. So we need to remind ourselves for a screen to be legal, that screener has to be stationary. The only exception is if it's, in the same path. That doesn't usually happen. So what happens here is we're going to see that this screen starts out okay, right? Right, whoops, back it up just a hair. He was okay. He was stationary initially, but then when the defender tried to go around him, that's when he moves and he picks him off. And that's when it becomes illegal.
Jeff, I'm going to comment here. Notice Josh's mechanics were great. First of all, he's got the call obviously correct. He gets a fist. He goes to the back of his head. He points the direction we're going, and he keeps his eyes on all 10 players. Too often, we make this call and we start up court and we're pointing in that direction, and we don't, our eyes are toward the other end line, and we might miss something that happens. This is perfect call, perfect mechanics.
Good point. And one recommendation here, because these are kind of difficult when because they obviously do have a right to roll to the basket. And a suggestion is which player moved first. That can kind of give you an indication of what is going on. And I think when we get back to live action, you're going to see that the defender moves first. I think I'm going to show it again. Yeah. Blue number 1 tries to get around that screen. So he moves first, and then what happens is that screener then moves. And that means he's no longer stationary. That means he's no longer in a legal screening position. And as a result, if he causes contact and prevents that defender from freedom of movement, then we have that correct call that we see right here, as John just mentioned, with a good signal. Oh, I did put it in. I forgot I did. Okay. This re-emphasizes what John just talked about. I'll play that back one more time. You should have stopped. Okay, so he stopped the clock with a fist behind the head, and he doesn't give the fist. Remember, the fist is no longer. Kudo number 7. Now, this is an advanced skill, but something that you need to be working towards eventually, and you need to hear it if you're brand new, and if you're a veteran. Hopefully, this will give you an idea that if you have a difficulty understanding what we're talking about here, this is important, and that is secondary coverage area. What we're talking about is what happens if you don't have a competitive matchup in your primary coverage area. Does that mean you're going to take a quick nap? No, that means where can I help the crew? I got to go and find a spot where I can help the crew, and that's called secondary coverage. And I think we have a great example of that right here. This opposite angle gives us a good look at what we're talking about. All right, the teaching points. As I said, this is a good example of secondary coverage area. We're going to have a late whistle on this. Sometimes this is referred to as a crew saver. What was so good about this is Andy, our lead official, was waiting because it really didn't occur in his primary area. It's going to end up in his primary area, but he's going to give his two partners a chance because technically, usually, they have a good look. In this case, they didn't. And by the way, this is no criticism of either the center or the trail official, as we'll see when we get back to live action. So we are going to have a late whistle, but it's considered to be a crew saver. And thirdly, this later whistle is an example of the 3 B's. Be late, be right, and be needed. And hopefully we'll explain that when we get back to live action. So the play starts right here in our trail's primary coverage area, PCA. The lead has no competitive matchup. Here's his PCA right here. He's got no competitive matchup. So he does the right thing. He's going to extend his vision cone. And where can I help? And he's going to be jolly on the spot. So getting back to that open versus closed view, as I said, in this case, through no fault of their own, which official in this crew of 3 has an open view? Which official is straight line? So let's look at our trail first. Again, now you may say, well, that doesn't look like he's straight line. He's got a clear shot to that offensive player. The reason why I feel he's straight line is because the offensive player is between the defensive player, where the foul is going to be on the right side of this player's body. So if this trail was going to make a ruling whether or not the contact was there or not, or was there open space, he can't tell. He's got this look right here. He's got this look. He's seeing the back of the number. He can't see well enough. So as a result, kudos for him for staying off this play and not guessing. Now let's go focus on our center. Our center, basically the same thing. He's in good position. He's free throw line extended. He's looking where he should be looking. Unfortunately, he's got 2 players that have screened him out. So he's got this look, straight line view. Kudos for him for not putting a whistle on the play. But yet, when we come back to live action, we're going to see that our lead has done the exact thing that he needs to do. He's extended his vision cone. He has that open view. He can see that it is closed in and that there is contact here, and it's going to be enough to affect the rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness of that player. And as a result, he waits, trail, no whistle, center, no whistle. I got to get it for the crew. Here I come. Nice job. As you can see from this angle, same thing. This is what I'm talking about. He can't see, our trail official can't see the contact on the hip. Our center official cannot see through this player here. So there's no way. They don't want to guess. And this is exactly what we mean when you hear the expression, trust your partner. Both of these guys had trust in their lead official that Andy was going to come to their rescue should it be needed. And it was. And that, my friends, completes our kudos session. And so I don't see anything else in the chat box. So we'll open up the mic. If anybody has any question, comments, feel free to chime in. All you need to do is hit your space bar and that opens up your microphone should you have a question, comment, or concern. John, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't have anything at this point.
Okay. Anybody else?
This is Ed Griffiths. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I have a question and maybe a comment. Everything I read told me to not blow the whistle at the end of a period. And the reason I bring that up is I had a situation one time where it was a bit of a problem. The ball bounced into the corner after a shot, and my partner, I was the trail, my partner had to deal with what looked like might have been a foul. The buzzer goes off, he blows the whistle, and now no one knows if he has something or he doesn't. He was just blowing the whistle because the buzzer went off. So I had to go to him, and it wasn't actually a problem, but it was just one more thing to deal with. I went to him, said, "What do you have?" He had nothing, and this was the end of the game, and this made the difference. Then I went to the table and I said, "Is the score right? We have nothing. Game is over." If he hadn't have blown the whistle, that would have been a little easier. And I mean, I've never seen it as a written protocol, but I have seen it suggested a couple of times in Referee Magazine that you do not blow the whistle at the buzzer. I don't know what you guys think of that. I'd be interested to know.
I would want that followed 100%. Given that the description of the play you had, most of the time we should not be blowing the whistle. Right? We have a call, blow the whistle. Otherwise, let it alone. If we don't blow the whistle, then we don't have anything.
The other thing that I was going to ask is in Pennsylvania, I saw it where they would agree. They did a pregame too. They would agree with X amount of seconds left on the clock if they were in a throw-in position that they would set up for a person, especially in a three-man. They'd set up for an opposite the table, and they would not rotate, no matter what, so that everyone knew who had the last shot. I don't know if that's something that you recommend or that you ever heard of. We thought that the rotation might make it confusing for you might have a guy that rotates and then all of a sudden the guy that's the center is the trail and blah, blah, blah. I don't know what you guys think of that. I always thought that was kind of a good idea, but again, whatever you guys think.
Stop and think about what you just said. Who's responsible for the last second shot? The official opposite the scorer's table. So let's say that we are set up so that the center is opposite the scorer's table. I know what you're saying, and that used to be sometimes the rule of thumb. They were saying lock down. That was the expression, lock down when it gets under 30 seconds. From what I have heard lately is that they're saying that why do we do that? Because it doesn't change who the person is. I heard you say it's confusing. Well, I don't know why it's confusing, because if there's a rotation, that center official now is the same person that's responsible for the last second shot, whether they're in the trail position or in the center position. And also bear in mind that we've always advocated if you're in a good position in that center spot, don't just kick out of it just because you're in a good position. But this brings up the last point in that, and that is that if you say lock down, then what happens is the center stays sometimes in a bad position. Think about, if you can remember the kudo from tonight, when we, I think it was the very, yeah, it was the very first kudo of the night, when Randy Ross was the center official and the play stopped between the 28-foot line and the division line. And what did Randy do? He went out to officiate that. If we had stayed in a lockdown position and said, no, you can't go out there, then he would have been in what we talk about, that he would not have obtained, he would not have that sense of urgency to obtain the open view. So I think the what I've heard lately is no, because it's the same person, and therefore there shouldn't be any conversion. You know, remember we talked about tapping on the chest? I started the play, the throw in, I got it as a center position. If they work the ball over where I got to go out, that's still me. I'm still responsible for it. I don't know what you think, John.
I agree with 100% with what you just got through saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the only scenario that doesn't suit that sit that is if you're the C and the lead rotates to your side and the ball reverses with 4 seconds to go and you don't know that now you're the lead. You are not the person opposite the bench anymore. That's the only scenario I can think of where that could be confusing. But I obviously I agree with you guys. And I've never heard anybody here that really liked that lockdown idea anyway.
Okay.
But there is that one possibility, and I actually saw it in a game, which was kind of unfortunate, where the center didn't see the rotation, and then two people came up with opposing calls on a last second shot. Luckily, it wasn't at the end of the game. But I agree.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we did it with an under.
Hey, Jeff,
Oh, Alfonso.
real quick.
Yep.
And I don't know if I missed it but we talk about the 4 designated spots, front court, back court.
Yep.
What about for like intentional fouls, which are normally closest to the spot? Or like a double foul, which
Yep.
same thing.
Yep. It's now the closest designated spot.
Okay.
Follow me?
Okay. Got it.
In other words, it's not the nearest to the foul, it's still nearest to the designated spot. That's the only
Got
thing.
it.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice.
Thanks, guys.
We did it. All right. You're welcome. See you in 2 weeks now. Okay.
Yes.
That we'll see you at the tip-off meeting before. Have a good week.